Okay, so welcome to the Under Falling Sky Career Retrospective Spectacular. So the impetus of this whole thing was, as we know, a few weeks ago, someone started a Facebook group called Early 2000 CT Local Music. Do you guys know offhand who started that?
Well, it was
Zeeble.
Who was it?
Okay.
Justin Zeeble?
Justin, yeah.
Hopefully I'm pronouncing
Okay.
his last name correctly.
Right. So shout out to Justin. He started this group, and it just came at the perfect time. Obviously, everyone's home with the COVID pandemic, so people don't have anything to do. So this, within a couple of days, it exploded to over 300 members and counting. So it brings back all these old memories. I don't know about you guys, but for me, it's like I almost feel like I'm in the movie It, where the kids go through this whole ordeal, and then they move away from dairy and they forget everything, and but then when they go back to dairy, it all comes back to them. So much of this shit I've totally forgot about, just haven't thought about it in over 10 years, 10, 13, 14 years. So now it's all coming back to me. I thought it would be fun to kind of just do like a roundtable podcast type thing. Why don't we start by just going around, everyone introducing yourself, say who you are, what bands you were in, and maybe what you played, and where you're talking to us from right now, because we're from some different areas all around the country. So I'll start. Jim Carlson, bass in Emperor Monkey and Under a Falling Sky and The Dayspring / Rivera. And I'm coming to you from New Haven, Connecticut. And I'll go to my left. I see Daniel. So go ahead, Dan.
Yeah, I'm Dan Hartnack. I was the drummer for Emperor Monkey, Under a Falling Sky, and The Dayspring. And I'm here in West Haven, Connecticut.
Zach.
Hey guys, my name is Zachary Tarkan, and I played bass in this year's Anthem.
And Saturday Matinee. Don't you dare forget you were in Saturday Matinee.
Yes, I did Saturday Matinee as well, and I am calling from Los Angeles, California. All right,
Chris.
Steve. Or Chris.
Yeah. Chris Veer. I played guitar and vocals for Emperor Monkey / Under Falling Sky / The Dayspring / Rivera.
Now, Chris, weren't you briefly in? Didn't you briefly play with Joe and them? What band was that?
That we never had a name. That was like in the interim. Like it was Hate to Have to Go Back, when Mark Mezzanotte was still playing guitar, and then Mark left, and it was just Joe and Ronnie, and then that's when I left. Emperor Monkey went.
So we'll get into all that, but you did play with Joe and Ronnie.
Yeah, we played together for a bit. Some of the songs we wrote together ended up becoming when Hate to Have to Go Back kind of reformed again. Ended up becoming some of their songs that we wrote together when it was us three.
Didn't you have a metal band for a second too, though?
Yeah, we were terrible.
Does that count, or is that too recent? Oh, yes.
It's not part of the scene, bro.
Yeah, the worst band ever. Don't worry about it. Doesn't exist.
Under Chris, we have Eric.
Eric Mahoney. I was in Under a Falling Sky at the very beginning, then Hate to Have to Go Back, then this year's Anthem, then eventually Shut Up and Deal, and that's it.
All right. You weren't in the Thrill and Apathy?
I was in the Thrill and Apathy stuff as well, yes.
That's what I thought.
That's what the name was. It was, yeah. That was the name was at the very end. It was Shut Up and Deal members turned into Thrill and Apathy. Recorded an album, didn't play any shows, but
that album was actually really good.
It's probably the one I'm proudest of, but
how niche are we getting? Are we going
Dude, go as niche as possible, dude, because I know Steve, I think, is in the most bands out of all of us.
Okay.
Go ahead, name them all, Steve.
Yeah. Steven Rivera.
Oh, wait, Eric, where are you calling from? And Chris, where are you calling from?
Right, yeah.
Chris from...
I'm in West Haven, Connecticut.
Chris is calling from Drake's music video, which is annoying.
Drake's music video.
I am calling from Seattle, Washington. It's where I live now.
Okay.
Yeah, Steve.
All right, Steven Rivera. I was in, Tangent.
Fuck yes. If you didn't say Tangent, I was going to punch my fucking computer screen.
Tangent, Fairmont, or what was it? Fairmount.
It was Fairmont. It was
Fairmont.
Okay. Fairmont. Victory Rose.
Yeah.
Remember that?
Oh fuck! I was in Victory Rose too. I forgot to say that.
You
I was
were-
also in Victory Rose.
We played. What did we play? Like Woodmont.
We played that. No, we played one show. The brand. We opened up for. We headlined the underground show for Brand New at Webster, and my amp exploded on stage.
Okay, yeah, that was great.
In like what 2004,
That
right?
was 2004. That was our
Yeah, I'll
sophomore
never
year.
remember. And then that was it, right? Until I was with
Silhouettes Like Angels.
That was the dude. I'll never remember that. Thank God that you remember that. Okay, yeah. Silhouettes Like I was like, who was I with Gary Cole at Woodmont Beach playing with? And that's it. Silhouettes Like Angels, the dumbest name. And then it was Under Falling Sky when I joined with you guys. And then the Day Spring, and then after that, just solo project stuff. So, and I'm calling from Los Angeles as well.
I also
Yeah,
forgot
so
to
half of us made it out to the West Coast. Half of us are just local towny scumbags. But if you can't tell from these band names, we're talking about the 2000s emo scene music thing with band names like Silhouettes Like Angels and Under a Falling Sky.
You came up with that name, right? Weren't you the one who came up with it?
I came up with Under a Falling Sky, yes. Yep, I did. We'll get into all that.
Okay, I was gonna ask. That needs to be on the schedule.
Yes, sir. Okay, so what I have, I have like a little list of like talking points. So first of all, it all starts with Chris and I went to school together at St. Lawrence in West Haven from pre-K through 8th grade. Now, early on, Chris and I probably weren't best friends per se, but by the time we hit middle school, we were definitely best friends along with Mark Proto and some of the other kids. And by the time we hit middle school, once we hit 1999, 2000, 2001, Blink-182 ruled our lives, right? Blink-182 was the biggest thing in the world to us,
Only
our
thing that
favorite
mattered.
band.
He's got
Yep.
it.
So we, we want to be just like them. That's all we listen to. I think I started playing bass. I think Chris played bass, but you wanted to play guitar, and I think you actually encouraged me to play bass so that you could play guitar, if I'm not mistaken.
I want to say that's what happened. I definitely started playing bass. I mowed lawns the summer going into 8th grade to save up enough money to buy a shitty little Kramer bass and amp. It was like it was literally $120 for the bass and the amp, and came with like a case and everything like that. I played bass for like maybe 7-8 months. And I learned how to read tabs from playing bass, and then just realized that every note on a bass was just a power chord on a guitar, and then taught myself to play guitar from there. And then, you got your little,
right.
I forget what kind of bass it was, that black and
Dan
white.
Electro.
Dan Electro, that's
bass.
what it was, yeah.
And it was both like the bass you got and the bass I got were both like those like little like starter kits that like came, cheap bass with a cheap little amp. So, and then Chris taught me how to read tabs. And I remember the first song I learned was Online Songs, Blink-182 from Take Off Your Pants and Jacket, which that's kind of funny, even just thinking about that, Online Songs where they're singing about like your screen name used to be mine, like all this stuff that just that's not even a thing anymore. Like if a kid listened to that song right now, they wouldn't even know what they're talking about. So we start playing that. So Chris plays guitar, I play bass. We're just learning every Blink-182's entire catalog, in middle school. Then we go to high school. I go to high school in New Haven. Chris goes to Notre Dame. At Notre Dame, Chris finds a drummer named Dan Hartnack that was, 2 grades ahead of us?
Dan was 2 years ahead of us, but me and Dan actually met at Jesus Camp. We were not like, we didn't know each other from high school yet.
Describe that experience for us, please.
Yeah, we became friends the summer going into freshman year of high school for me. We went to Jesus Camp in New Jersey called Catholic Heart Work Camp.
Yep, Edison, New Jersey.
Dude, we were there for like a whole week, and I did not I was too busy trying to like finger bang chicks like on the baseball
unsuccessfully
the whole time. Like I did not me and Dan weren't like hanging out. And then literally the morning we're leaving to come back to Connecticut. So I should preface this. Me and Jim, which I still have it, me and Jim recorded a cassette in my basement.
Guitar solo.
Oh, yes. There actually was a part where I said guitar solo. We recorded us playing all of these Blink-182 covers in our basement. And we both sang, and we were both fucking terrible. Like, just, it was not good. Like,
In the
I was
basement
playing
of the house that you're in right now.
Yeah, the house I'm in. I bought my parents' house. So the house we're in right now, yeah. Or the house I'm in right now. I didn't buy another amp. So I was playing guitar through a bass amp, through that shitty Kramer bass amp, with like a shitty, I don't know, some sort of pedal, some sort of distortion pedal. And so we recorded that. So I literally listened to that the whole ride down to Catholic Hard Work Camp. I was just listening to that cassette. I was showing all these kids I met from like New Jersey who were all in like
Kentucky,
Maryland, who were also into like pop punk and shit like that. I was like, oh, check this out. And it was just me and Jim. And then so the morning we're leaving to come back to Connecticut, Dan, we're all just standing there. Everyone's like loading their shit into the cars to leave. And Dan's just sitting there listening to music. And I was like, what are you listening to? And he's just like, Slipknot. And I was just like, I fucking love Slipknot, dude. And he was like, yeah, I play drums. And I was like, oh shit, really? I was like, I play guitar. I'm in a band. And I'm not kidding. I didn't even give him an opportunity. I literally go, oh shit, you play drums? You're in my band now. Like I didn't ask him to be in it. I didn't say come try out. I was just like, you're in my band.
2 minutes into meeting him, I'm in a band.
So the first conversation me and Dan ever had was me telling him he's my drummer now.
All right, now that you tell that story, it comes back to me now that you did meet him in the summer before. And then, so you came back from the Catholic work camp. You probably didn't tell me about it till you came back because there were no cell phones or anything. So I didn't hear from you.
You came to that Jesus camp too that summer, didn't you? The next one. You did, yeah.
Yeah,
you did
not in New Jersey. The
St.
next
Paul's.
one in West Haven. Yes, I did.
I think that was that same. I believe that was that same summer because we went right into that afterwards.
Mm-hmm. So, but you told me you found this drummer. One day you bring him over your house, and the Bilko doors open your basement, and I just see these skinny legs walking down with soccer socks going up.
Knee-high soccer socks. Yep. Yes, I'm so
knee-high soccer socks with the shorts.
He didn't just come from soccer practice. That was
and I think a Punisher T-shirt, if I remember correctly.
I believe so. Yeah.
Punisher T-shirt.
Okay.
And I think I had a hat. I had the.
And we.
Do you remember the first song we played?
No.
M&M's. Blink-182's M&M's was the first song that we played in the basement together.
Didn't you play drums with soccer shit on for a while, Dan?
Yeah, I did.
Yeah, that was the best.
I did.
Bro, that was his look, man. That was his branding. Wearing fucking soccer socks that you're supposed to put the shin guards under. That was his look. That was his brand. So yeah. So we then learn and play just tons and tons of Blink-182 songs. Start to make our own shitty 90-second pop punk songs, 2-minute pop punk songs. We take on the name Emperor Monkey, which I believe was a stuffed animal that I had that we called Emperor Monkey. So
Joe Kowalski, I think, actually came up with that name, Emperor
like
Monkey, if I remember correctly.
So we took that. We have a name. We're making these 2-minute long, really crappy pop punk songs, and then it's time. We book a show. We're going to play where every other local band in Connecticut plays to start off, the Amity Teen Center, which was not the Amity Teen Center. The Amity Teen Center was Amity High School or a middle school?
I think it was the junior high, like gymnasium or something like that.
And every one of those shows was a benefit show to build a new Amity Teen Center.
That's right.
And we played so many of those friggin' shows. And by the time they finally built the Amity Teen Center, I don't think I ever went to it once.
We played there once.
We did play there once.
We played there one time with Jamie. Like, we'll get to it, but with Jamie, we played there one time.
Is this the one on Orange Center Road?
The one that's in Woodbridge / New Haven.
Yeah. But the one more
it's like next to the bowling alley.
Wait, did they have like a gazebo in the back or something like that people played at?
No, that was that's the one on Orange Center Road. They did like summertime gazebo shows there.
Yeah. Oh, we did that one time. I don't think with you guys though.
No, you played it with us, and that's when Dave Peregrine knocked over his fucking ride his ride cymbal
Oh,
fell
right.
and cut the power cord in
Cut the
half.
power cord.
I
Yeah.
remember
Powering
that.
the whole
I
piece.
remember. I was at that show.
And it fucking sparked up
It
and
sparked
shit.
everywhere.
Yeah. And like, I think maybe it was Joe or somebody had a power cord luckily in their car and came out, and like we were able to continue with the show.
What band was Dave Peregrine in?
That was probably Tangent at that point.
Tangent.
Yeah.
I was at that.
Oh, okay. I remember who you're talking about. It was Steve's band. Okay.
It was
All
Mike.
right. So yeah,
It was
Yeah,
Mike,
Travis played guitar for you guys. It was you and Travis played guitar.
Travis,
Okay.
Mike,
but
Dave, and myself, I think.
okay, and we're getting ahead of ourselves. So we book a show before our first show at the MD Teen Center. 2 weekends before, I'm sleeping over at Chris's house, which by this point, Chris and I are just best friends, sleeping over each other's house every weekend. And we go to an Amity Teen Center show to check out the scene, to scope it out before we're going to play one. And we go. And do you remember who played that night, Chris? It was like Redchester.
Redchester, Tweak 9. Fuck, dude. That pretty heavy fucking metal band. I can't remember the fucking name. I think it started with an R. Like, it's fucked up to say, but I know like their guitarist ended up like dying like later.
Oh,
Like,
I know. Wait.
It was Rev something, I think, or Reviant, or I can't.
Yeah, I vaguely remember that too.
What about a certain something with the girl singer? They didn't play that night?
No, they didn't play that show. We only played with a certain something one time, and Dan actually wasn't there for that show. That was when we played.
The Debonair.
That was at the Debonair. I think Dan. I think you were in London.
Oh God.
I
with
think
the
so.
band. We played with Elliot Stack. Came and played drums for us for that
Okay.
show.
We got to
remember that.
circle back to the Debonair later. But
forgot about
okay,
the
but we
Debonair.
go, and when we were texting before, you guys gave me flack for using the expression we looked up to these bands. But, you know, when we went there and we saw Redchester and we saw a Chase Worthwhile and whatever, like these bands they had their own songs. They had better equipment than us, and they were on stage playing and we weren't yet. So I think Chris and I kind of did, look up to them to some extent and say, we want to get to that point, right?
DTF8 played that show too. Duct Tape Figure 8. They played that show as well. That first show we went to before.
Wait, are you talking about the weird like puppet joint? There's like puppets everywhere.
No, that was
the
that
Puppet
was
House in
Brantford.
It's way later.
That's the Puppet House in Brantford. This is the Amity Teen Center. It was a middle school gym out in Woodbridge.
Dude, you definitely played there, dude.
It's on Orange.
Yeah, and we played so many shows. That was like the only place we played shows.
That
at
was the
first.
only place we
those,
played until we finally
and
played the
we
Masonic
played-
Temple. The Masonic
Right,
Temple
but we also
in West Haven was
played
the first time we ever played
Gazebo
outside.
shows. Where was the gazebo that we played at?
That's in Orange. That's on Orange Center Road.
Yeah.
Okay.
Like the Orange Center.
remember the
Orange
gazebo
Community
shows,
Center
too.
or something like that.
Okay, so we did the Amity Teen Center. We did gazebo shows. We did Emperor Monkey. We were playing these crappy pop punk songs. I sang, you sang. Dan played drums. We were just completely Blink-182, rip off pretty much. We wanted to be Blink-182. So
We also played the best show we ever played as Emperor Monkey at the Empress Ballroom.
Yeah.
That's
We played
true.
one show
Yep.
at the Empress Ballroom, and it's probably the
remember that
best
show.
we ever played. I remember like Shayna and like all your friends from high school and community
Was
came
that
to
with
that show.
Walt
And everyone was like, holy shit, you guys were so good.
yeah.
And like, I was like, holy
I
fuck.
totally forgot
That was the tightest. That was the first time we played a venue that had like an actual sound system where they mic'd your amps and shit.
Yeah, and a
like,
sound
it was
check.
like a real stage. It was like a real venue. And we for what we were, that was the best show we ever played. And I remember like being like, oh, we're definitely getting signed to Drive Through Records like tomorrow from how good the show was. That's how this works, right?
Okay.
Yeah, come walk on your
So,
back.
yeah.
Yeah.
So that pretty much takes us all through freshman year of high school, probably about. But I think this is a good time to bring up Joe Heafy, because also what I want to do with this was, and we have Eric here and we have Zach here, we have people that were also part of Hate to Have to Go Back / this year's Anthem / whatever. And I just think you can't talk about Under a Falling Sky without talking about that band, because we were just so like intertwined, like we were like best friend bands or whatever. You know what I mean? So
yeah, we
some
played
of us
every
were in
show
both
together.
bands.
Like we played, we were like, hey, check out this. We recorded at the same studios. Like we did
battled
everything
too, don't
together.
forget
We did
that.
battle. Yeah, we
They
battled
were
in
like
Long
our
Island.
big, they were like our older brothers. They were like the bigger because they all
Right,
were a
right.
couple years
They were a
older.
couple
but,
years
like, They
older.
were like our
Yep.
big brothers, basically.
Under Fallen Sky
And they
won.
started as four faked out. Then they became Hate to Have to Go Back. And when they were four faked out, it was like Mark Mezzanotte,
It was like Lincoln.
Joe,
Yeah, Mark, Joe, Ronnie,
Vinny.
and Vinny. Vinny and Freddie, yeah.
Yep. So,
Oh, yeah,
but
Vinny.
Chris,
I
you
went to
start-
high school with all of them too. That's how like I was introduced to them. Besides Ronnie. Ronnie went to West Haven High, but Vinny, Joe, and Mark went to Notre Dame with me. So me and Joe were in chorus together,
Yeah.
first period every day my freshman year. Joe was a senior, I was a freshman.
Yeah, Mark
And-
was in my homeroom.
Yeah, and Mark was in chorus with us too. So that's how like that kind of all like Joe was the one who told me about the Amity Teen Center. That's how I even found out about it. They played there all the time. And he was like, here's Anne Marie. I never forget her name. Anne Marie. He was like, here's her phone number. Get in contact with her and like she'll book shows for you.
Okay, so you and Joe start getting tight, and eventually Joe
Yeah.
pulls you away from Emperor Monkey. So what happened?
Eventually, yes. I saw us hitting I basically, dude, I just wanted to, I don't know, I was kind of phasing out of like the pop punk thing. I just wanted to do more. They were older. I was just like, oh, these are older guys. They have cars. They've got like decent equipment. Joe had like a fucking full rehearsal space in his parents' basement, which I think we all played in at some point. I think even Emperor Monkey practiced there one time. Is this the part we're getting to where I leave and then everything becomes
Sure, but you just made a good point. Like, it's not 1999, 2000, 2001. It starts to become 2002, and what happens in 2002? Tell All Your Friends comes out. Now it starts going towards Taking Back Sunday and Brand New, and pop punk kind of goes
Thursday.
out of Thursday, and it starts being more about now. Like Blink-182 was the first big thing that happened to me in middle school with music, but the next big thing that happened to me was hearing Taking Back Sunday, Great Romances of the 20th Century on the Warped Tour 2002 compilation CD.
You showed me them. I remember you showing me them in your bedroom at your parents' house, and you playing like, and will you tell all your friends? And you were like playing that shit on your bass, and I was just like, you were like singing it to me in the way that you like do. You were just like fucking all like weird, like, and will you tell all your friends? Like playing it for me, and I was just like, I remember the first time I heard it, I was like, that's all right. And then I actually heard the album, and I was like, oh, this is a life-changing album. Like, this is the greatest fucking thing I've ever heard.
Really
like,
was.
at that point, I thought it was – and still to this day, like, I'm fucking in my 30s, and it was fucking – it was perfect. It was a perfect album.
It was a game changer.
Yeah,
It was.
game
Yeah.
changer.
Okay, so go ahead. So then
So yeah, so me and Joe obviously were friends from school. Then he graduated, but obviously we were all still playing. We played with Hate to Have to Go Back as Emperor Monkey. Then for me and Joe hanging out, he was like, "Hey, like, we should." I forget exactly how it happened, but he was like, "We should write some music together." And then eventually, I remember the night I called both of you guys and was like, "Guys, I don't want to do this anymore. It's not you guys, it's me." Like I
broke
fed you
up
all the
with us.
bullshit lines and stuff like
Yep.
that.
And you
I was
called
like,
us
"I
on
wanna be
total phone.
friends. I don't
Three-way
want this
call.
to like come in from like I love you guys. I've known you forever. I don't want to blah blah blah." And I'm not exaggerating. This is probably something I never told you guys, but it'll be candid now. That night, I told you guys about all that I was leaving and stuff. After I got off the phone with you guys, I forget what I did, and then I ended up calling Gary Cole afterwards. And Gary, you guys immediately got off the phone with me and like called Gary, I think, and were like, let's start something else. Like, fuck Chris, he's an asshole, like all this other shit. And I remember, I'm not gonna lie to you guys, I talked to Gary on the phone and he told me that. And I remember I went into my dad's room. I'm fucking like 16 years old at this point. I went to my dad's room and woke him up and I was crying.
no, probably like 15.
So
Probably
fucking
15.
hard, dude. I was crying like a little fucking girl. And I was just like, I remember like waking my dad up in the middle. Like my dad woke up at 4 a.m. every day to go to work. And I woke him up at like 10 o'clock at night and was like crying and was like, we were like explaining the whole thing. And then I remember like telling him, I was just like, but you don't understand, like, me and Joe, like, he's such a great songwriter. Like, I was like, we're going to make it, dude. Like, I'm going to make it. Like, I'm making the decision. I'm going to make it. Dude, it was like a whole thing, dude. It was like the most after-school special, like, over-the-top bullshit ever. And so to cut to, we wrote a bunch of songs together. I think we actually tried out Dan on drums at one point.
You did. Yep.
Tried out Elliot Stack on drums, and I think we tried out Will Pedersen on drums. We ended up going with Elliot, and then like that ended up like not really working out, and then it basically ended up being that Joe and them ended up moving on without me because I was too young. I was still in high school. They were all out of high school at that point, and like they would practice on like a Tuesday night at RVP at like 10 o'clock at night, and obviously I can't do that. It ended up being like a conflict of interest basically, and so they moved on. I remember like sitting down on the phone with Joe and like being like, all right, well, I want to keep this song because I wrote the majority of this song. You guys can keep that song and like keep the leads or whatever that I wrote for that. And you guys can keep that song and this, and that. And we kind of divvied up the catalog that we had at that point. And that was kind of where everything split off. For the next 6 months, wasn't in a band. And then that's where you, Dan, and
pause there for a sec. So Dan and I kind of stuck together, and I said to Dan, I was like, I want to do something like Taking Back Sunday, brand new, something like I want to do that kind of band. So let's get some people together. I think we played with like Gary Cole and Mike Kelly. I think we invited them over one time to your basement with them. But then, and Dan and Eric, you have to fill me in because my memory completely blanks. I don't remember how it happened. How did Eric come into the fold?
My memory's fucked up too. I'm assuming Dan got me in.
Yeah, I mean,
and where do we know Eric from? The shows?
So no, well,
we all went to high school. Dan,
we all went to high school.
Also went to Notre Dame with us, so we all knew each other from school as well.
You guys all went to Notre Dame. Okay.
But
Eric sat in the.
Oh, you're right. So I didn't drive throughout all of high school, and I had to wait until 4 o'clock for my grandma to pick me up every day. And so I would bring an acoustic guitar, or someone would bring an acoustic guitar, and we'd hang out downstairs in the cafeteria playing and stuff. And that's probably where I met Dan.
Well, we also had, yes, that was part of it, but we also had like the mutual friend with Phil Karish.
That's true. We also had the mutual friend of Phil Karish.
Sexy Phil!
Yeah, the sexy Phil.
Who really started bringing me to local shows at all.
Right.
Yeah.
So I was really, really good friends with Phil, and then I think we just kind of met and then started hanging out after school, like in the cafeteria, and then all of a sudden I was just like, hey, me and Jim need somebody to play guitar. You up for it?
Wait, Jim, you didn't go to Notre Dame?
No,
I did not go to Notre Dame. No, I went to high school in the community in New Haven.
Why do I feel like
because I went to St. Lawrence with all these guys, and all these guys went to Notre Dame.
He went to St. Lawrence with me and Mark and Gary and Mike, and all of us went to the same school.
And everyone went to Notre Dame. Almost everyone went to Notre Dame.
Someone tell me why was I at Notre Dame for like one day?
I'll tell you why you're at Notre Dame for one day, even though I don't know this. Like I didn't see you. You got accepted to Notre Dame and came there as a shadow, I'm going to assume, and you shadowed someone that you knew there for the day.
That's right.
Maybe it was Zach. I don't know. It might have been Zach. I don't know. But you shadowed someone for the day, but then you ended up going to St. Joe's for your freshman year, right?
Yeah, and then I switched to foreign. Yeah, exactly. That makes sense. I remember that.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay, so we got me, Dan, Eric. We're playing together. We're jamming together. Obviously, we need more people. We didn't want to do like, a 3-piece thing like a pop punk band. I wanted to go more in that Taking Back Sunday.
And I think
Thursday
around that time
was
Under Oath. They're Only Chasing Safety came out.
Sure, that came out.
Sure,
in 03,
music was
that came out, or 2004.
I want to say 04, but whatever, doesn't matter. So yeah, music was moving into that direction. That kind of stuff became very, very popular. You know what I mean? And we were all into that. So also, I would go on these message boards like the web. If you remember, Webster Theater would have message boards like AbsolutePunk.net and stuff. The forums, and I guess it was the Empress forums.
Yep.
I found Dave and Jay, a singer and a guitarist, and they were looking to do exactly what I was looking to do. So one day at we arranged the meetup for them to come down they were from Trumbull. They come down from Trumbull to Dan's house. I think we had
Jay's
to
beat to shit Saab 900. I remember that fucking piece of shit.
Dan, I think, did we lie to your parents and say we know them? I feel like your parents wouldn't have us just allow like strangers to come over your house.
I don't remember because I don't think my parents were home that day.
Let me just side note. Dan's parents are the only reason any of these bands existed. If it wasn't for Dan's parents letting us jam out in that fucking bedroom in your basement, we would have never had a practice space. I can't believe they dealt with that just noise. That's all we were. Until like we got out of high school, all these bands was noise. Until we realized like what a click track was and what like being on time was.
I know my parents were troopers.
Thank you to the Heartbacks for giving us
on Carlos and Marianne.
Round of applause for Dan's parents.
Okay, so Dave and Jay show up, and if we were looking for someone that wanted to be in a quote-unquote emo band, Dave was the
quintessential
emo guy, man. So go ahead, Eric. I saw you talking about it on the Facebook page. What did Dave come with that day?
So Dave shows up, and he's like, oh, and he had like a backpack or something, and he had like all his lyrics and all his stuff written down. And then he had
in journals.
Yeah, and journals and stuff. And then he had a few CDs with him. And he's like, here's these CDs. This is kind of the direction I want to go.
That he burned for us.
And he burned them for each person. And I'm going to do my best. I'm pretty sure it was a Static Lullaby.
Yep.
Boys Night Out.
Yes. I know because Jim sent a text to our group chat with those CDs. Yeah.
That's right. Yeah.
Remember these things? Remember CD holders? I still have.
The best. That's my one.
Boys Night Out, Make Yourself Sick.
Good.
A Static Lullaby.
Don't forget to breathe.
And this is Dave's handwriting. Dave wrote on these, A Static Lullaby.
That's
Don't
amazing.
Forget to Breathe. And Don't Forget to Breathe with a 4. And I think the last one was Funeral for a Friend.
Funeral for a Friend. That would have been the other one. I feel like there was a Census Fail CD in there. I don't remember.
I think it was their demo. It was their EP.
Probably.
Yeah, it would have been their EP.
Right.
And then
so that was like our homework. And now Dave again. Dave is he was emo personified. And again, now we're all, we're 16 years old. So you don't obviously we're not going to write the best lyrics and stuff in the world, but Dave was like so over dramatic with song titles like To Whom This Heart Concerns and Romance Roulette and everything.
Autumn in an Ambulance.
Over the top. No, An Ambulance Too Late and An Autumn of Us.
Oh, that's what it was.
And I remember
Ambulance is thrice. I'm sorry.
He spelled Autumn of Us with the of and the us together, OFUS all together. And I said, Dave, why is it spelled like that? And he said, oh, you ever hear that thing? A Fungus Among Us?
From the Incubus album?
Incubus, yes.
That album's great.
It's like that.
You know what? Actually, I won't talk shit about that because that's actually dope that he at least referenced that first.
That album was great. That album was really cool.
Okay.
What else do I remember? I remember when we asked him about that song or whatever, he was like, oh, it's about my ex-girlfriend. We broke up 2 autumns ago.
That's right. That's right.
Something like that, he said. And I was like, holy shit. I don't even know what emo is right now, and I don't know what the fuck you're talking about.
Yeah.
I'm going to go
2 autumns ago. So, and to touch briefly on Jay, super cool kid, pretty good guitar player, very unique guitar player. He was definitely a lead guitarist. He was definitely very Thursday inspired, and he would have these really cool leads that would kind of like just go throughout the whole song. Very unique, very cool. So shout out to Jay.
Fuck yeah, dude. I love Jay.
Agreed.
When me and Jay became real, like pretty close. Once I came back into the fold, me and Jay got along real well for a long time because he was just real cool, real relaxed. He wasn't, he was just a very chill kid. I think it's partly because I think he was the first one out of all of us to start smoking weed. So he was like real
Yep.
fucking just like laid back and chill and shit like that. He was older than all of us. So yeah, fuck yeah, Jay Tyler.
Yep.
Love you,
He was
man.
the only one that drove.
Yeah, he was like,
It's true.
So then we, we write a couple songs. We go and record, and we recorded in Sonia at someone that actually a childhood friend of my uncle, who grew up in the Hill neighborhood of New Haven with my uncle, a guy named not Hector Logan, George Logan, and George Logan is actually a state rep in the CT Congress right now.
Oh shit.
no shit, really?
Yep.
Yeah,
And
all right.
he's a really nice, really cool African American guy. And he's still to this day, he does a Jimi Hendrix like tribute band, and he sings and he plays Jimi Hendrix, and he's just an awesome guitarist. So he has these 15, 16-year-old white boys come to his place in Ansonia, which he had a nice recording studio in his home. And we record 3 tracks, and it's probably nothing he ever heard or recorded before. And the tracks were Autumn of Us, To Whom This, no, not To Whom This Heart May Serve,
Untitled Romance.
Untitled Romance, and An
The
Ambulance
fucking
Too
names,
Late.
man.
And the creation of An Ambulance Too Late, according to Dave, and I think he kind of made all this stuff up, but he was like, I heard one night just laying in bed, I heard a car crash. And then afterwards, as an ambulance siren in the distance, and it was an ambulance too late. So, but on Autumn of Us, who did we bring in to do vocals, to do guest vocals?
We brought in Joe Heafy.
Mr. Joe.
Brought in Joe Heafy, because if we had
Bringing
Joe
me back
Heafy,
to.
yeah,
It's bringing me back to. It's bringing me back to. Bringing me back to. Back that you want. It's bringing me back to. It's bringing me back to. It's bringing.
bringing in Joe Heafy, we're like, that'll give us instant credibility. That'll give us clout having Joe Heafy come and do vocals on it, because Joe Heafy is a name in the Connecticut, in the Southern Connecticut, New Haven County local music scene, right?
I think we should have used Russ Lyman personally, but
Quick side note for that show that we went to, I'll never forget it. That show we went to before Emperor Monkey played their first show, right before Tweak 9 goes on to play, I think the curtains were closed or something like that on the stage, and the curtains open, and Russ Lyman's standing on the stage, and he's mooning the whole crowd, but not with his ass out, just his underwear out. And I'll never forget, he had the biggest sweat stain down his ass crack, in his underwear ever. Dude, I don't know why, but that just stands out to me vividly. That's the first time I ever saw him. I knew what Chase Worth Wild was from mp3.com. I just fucking dated myself with that one. But mp3.com, I knew who a Chase Worth Wild was. I already listened to them before I was even in high school. Then I was like, oh shit, that's that guy. And I'll never forget him mooning the crowd and just straight sweat stain ass crack.
So that's just
Anyways,
burned into
continue.
your memory, Russ Lyman's ass crack.
But,
Okay,
yeah.
so for a little while, it's Eric's in the band. We're playing shows. Where are we playing shows at that time? We're playing at the Masonic Temple. We're playing a lot of shows with Hate Tap. What were they at that point? At that point, they were Hate Tap.
They were still Hate Tap to Go Back.
Yeah,
so
we were playing hall shows and Amity Teen Center a couple more times. Empress.
The Roxy. That was the fucking show, dude. That
Roxy.
show at the Roxy with
Where was
that
the Roxy?
Hate Tap to Go Back, Red Chester, call an ambulance, top of the fair. I think
Big City Skyline.
Big City Skyline,
That was
James
scary.
Blackman. I remember that.
Where was the Roxy?
For Big City
Scared.
Skyline.
Real scared.
Where was the Roxy?
The Roxy's in Norwalk. I remember I was at that show and I wasn't in a band at the time. And I remember watching you guys, watching everyone else and being like, fuck man, I gotta get in a band again. What am I doing?
Wait,
and that was
it on-
kind of
was
what
it-
led to eventually us
You said
reuniting.
it was.
Yeah, so let's
Yeah,
go. Let's go
Newport?
back to Chris and what's going on with Chris and how you hook up with Steve and all that.
So, Steve, I forget exactly how it. So, Tangent was a band. Was Steve, Dave Peregrine, who also went to Notre Dame,
And like,
Gary Cole played bass, who was like one of my best friends at the time. And Travis Bell, who eventually ended up recording a ton of our shit. They were a band. And then during all of this time, after Joe was like, all right, like, you're too young, this isn't going to work out, I ended up joining up with them for a little while. We recorded two songs, I think, at that place in Wallingford. I forget that it was the same place. We recorded with the same guy Top of the Fair recorded a couple songs with.
Wait, what
We
band?
went in there, coughed up a bunch of cash that we didn't have at 16.
I think
What band are you talking about right now?
What's up?
Hate to Have to Go Back album was recorded.
No. This was
Joe and Ronnie did a bunch of work for some guy in Wallingford. They're helping him build his studio. I want to say
I don't remember them recording that. That might have happened. I don't know. But at that time, I knew, because I knew Kurt. I knew Phil, the drummer at Top of the Fair, Phil Wazanovitz. He was like really good friends with my cousin. He lived right around the corner from him. So I'd known Phil since I was like 6 years old. And then ended up running back into them in the scene with Top of the Fair and shit like that when we were in Emperor Monkey. So I was always in contact with Kurt. And he had told me they recorded there. It sounded great at the time. So I was like, yo, we'll go here. And I got in contact with that guy. We went and recorded 2 songs with him. It was me, Steve, Dave Peregrine, and Kyle. What was Kyle's last name, Steve? He was from like Greenwich.
It wasn't Rogers.
It might have been Rogers. I don't remember, dude. I don't remember. It's like you knew him better than I did.
Dude, that dude was cool, but then
He was cool as fuck.
what
happened to that kid?
He just
He just disappeared. He
No,
lived in Greenwich. We went and recorded that, and then somehow the only show we ever played, we somehow got on Brand New, played with Kevin Devine, and I want to say starts with an E. I can't think of the name of the band. Not Emery. It was something else. Isley. It was Kevin Devine, Isley, and Brand New played at the Webster, and there was an underground show. And somehow, at the time, we were like, oh, they put us on last. We were like, oh, we get to headline the underground, not knowing the worst fucking spot to play at the underground, because the main stage show starts during the last band at the underground. So like, there was no one in there besides like our family and friends, like Steve's dad and shit. We played a set. My amp blew up. I had a Line 6 Spider 2 head, and it blew the fuck up in midway through the last song of the set. That was the only show I think we ever played together. And then I ended up leaving that. I forget why. And then they went on to form Fairmont / Silhouettes Like Angels, and I was kind of just like a free agent for a while. And then I ended up writing, during that time, I ended up writing a bunch of songs just in my bedroom. And then Under a Falling Sky was already a thing. It was all you guys were together. And then Eric, you ended up leaving to join Hate to Have to Go Back. Mm-hmm. And then that's when I was just like, well, fuck it. All of us have already played together for so long anyways. I ended up coming in and being like, well, hey, listen, you guys have these couple songs and I've got all these songs I've already written. It's basically just Census Fail's second album I had already written in my bedroom. And then that's where Under a Falling Sky, most.
Before we get too much into that, we got to talk about Eric leaving. But I also want to say, just like at the time we started playing shows with Steve, and I didn't know Steve, but I started knowing him from, just playing these shows with him. And I was like, who is this kid? Who is this hot shot that is.
The first time I ever met Steve, I watched him play the solo from Crazy Train, like perfectly. And he was like, he was literally like 8 years old at the time or some shit. And I was like, who the fuck is this pudgy little Puerto Rican kid on stage?
Wait, was that
fucking shredding? And how does he already have a $3,000 Les Paul studio when I'm playing $120 fucking Squire
Dude.
Strat still, and you were just
Didn't
fucking.
you play at like a
shredding.
bowling alley,
Who is
Steve?
this kid?
Yeah, that was my first show was that AMF bowling alley that I don't know what the hell it's called now.
Yeah, but hang on real quick, because I know Eric has a time constraint.
I texted the girlfriend. I'm gonna pick her up a little late.
Oh, all right.
Fuck yeah! I knew that was gonna happen. I was like, this motherfucker's gonna get way too into this conversation and be like, "Bitch, I will be there when I will be there."
No, but also
Now again, stuff I haven't thought about for years is just coming back to me because that just popped in my head that you played at that bowling alley because I think me and Chris were there for some reason.
Yeah,
I was there when you
I
played.
think
at that
I was there
bowling alley.
too. For
that
some
was
reason.
actually my first live show ever played, and I remember it was with Travis, and we played all covers like fucking Nirvana, Ozzy.
Finch,
Like, I don't know.
What It Is to Burn.
It was
You
basically
guys played Finch, What It Is to Burn too.
Yeah.
And you guys recorded that too. You guys recorded yourselves somewhere.
I
playing
think,
that,
I think that was like Travis's first, like one of his first times recording. I think he recorded something that we did. I don't remember what it was, but no, at that time I was playing a Gibson, but definitely was not a $3,000. I don't even have a $3,000 Gibson now. I mean, it's probably
No, I mean that was an over exaggeration, but it was
it's only
your black Les Paul
$2,500.
studio that broke 800 times.
No, yeah. I honestly, Gibsons are the best, dude, because I went from the black one to this one, and I've never used a different guitar.
You've had that guitar for 14 fucking years, dude, and it still sounds great.
These are still belt straps from when we used to play, and this guitar still makes any amplifier, any setup sound freaking amazing. But I've basically not had more than 2 guitars, and I got this one at somewhere.
And your Fender with the gold pickup, the gold pick guard.
the
That's what
American.
I played.
I don't remember. I sold that to someone, like maybe Mike.
You sold it
Howard
to
or
Rich.
something.
You sold it to
Right.
Rich Pompano.
Rich Pompano.
Yeah. But yeah, we played that bowling alley.
Under Phone Sky right now is still Dan, me, Dave, Jay, Eric. We're playing some shows. We're playing The Empress. And speaking of covers, playing Finch. Speaking of Finch, What It Is to Burn. That was a song that all these bands played these same covers. Finch, What It Is to Burn.
We played
Brand new 70 times 7.
It was a
Taking
hit.
Back Sunday. You're So Last Summer. Like we all these bands played the same songs, and we played those songs too.
It was a different Finch song though. We played
Letters to You.
Yeah, Letters to You is the next one that everyone
we
played.
played the one that starts with all the harmonics.
Oh, I'll never remember the name of that, but I know the song.
That's
I
the
want
one-
you to know that I miss you.
Yeah.
Anyway, so as we were playing with Under a Fallen Sky, I was getting closer and closer to the guys in Hate to Have to Go Back. And before I even joined Under a Fallen Sky, when I started going to these local shows, and I was like, oh, I Hate to Have to Go Back. Fucking loved them. Fucking
Yeah, dude.
fanboy.
Postscript.
Fanboy like a motherfucker over this Hate
Was
to
the
Have to Go
Finch
Back. Not even really knowing what the rest of these emo screamo bands sound like. I just really liked Hate to Have to Go Back. And so then it gets to the point where, like I was saying before, I was hanging out at Notre Dame till 4 o'clock waiting for my grandma to drive her little 88 Grand Marquis and come pick me up. And and I just remember Joe was in whatever after school program every fucking day because he never wanted to do his fucking work. So Joe had to stay there until like 4 o'clock. And I just remember one day I'm just like hanging out in the hallway outside of the after school program. And I'm learning Hate to Have to Go Back songs, in my room by myself. So I'm like sitting in the hallway playing Hate to Have to Go Back songs like a fanboy and hoping that Joe hears me inside this fucking room. And eventually, like, we started, like, it got to the point where, like, I was probably getting kind of creepy. And I think he was doing his best to distance himself from me. And then eventually got to the point where they were ready to part ways with Mark Mezzanotte. And Joe just comes up to me one day and goes, you want to play in my band, blah, blah, blah. We're going to do all these things. We're going to go on tour, blah, blah, blah. Like, really hype. Joe's the hype train of Hate to Have to Go Back, as per usual. And I'm like, whoa, I was like, that sounds awesome. Like, I've been watching you guys, locally for, however many months or whatever it was. I was like, yeah, that sounds really cool. And then, where was I going with this? And so then I remember they were they were recording at the time. They were recording
At Horizon.
at Horizon in West Haven, and Ronnie was drinking.
Fucking John.
Ronnie was drinking so much what do you call it, cherry Coca-Cola to make himself scream great. That was the secret, by the way. It was always cherry cola. And then
Dude.
I remember just being in the studio, just hanging out or whatever, and
I was with you.
and fucking they end up kicking Mark out of the band as I'm at the studio. And I think I was outside at the time, and Mark's car just rips out of the parking lot, fucking throwing gravel everywhere. I'm just like, fuck, I guess it happened. I guess I'm going to be in the band now. And that's pretty much how that went down. Chris was at the studio quite a bit too. So
I was with you on that day.
you were there on that day as well?
On that day, yes.
Fuck, dude, that was a stressful motherfucker.
Yeah, I remember.
Yeah,
What was it? John, the engineer at Horizon, was just like, "When you guys gonna get rid of this dude?" And then
Yeah.
Joe like went up to you and was just like, "You already know our song, so you want to be in the band?" And I'm
Yeah,
like, I'm sitting there in the corner like, "What?
We're in a
happening?"
band together already. Excuse me.
Like, excuse me.
Yeah, and that was the thing. I had no plans of doing it. Like, I was pretty happy, like, just being able to play at all with anybody. And, but it was one of those things where it was just a band that I looked up to way too much. And it was like, you know, I had to say goodbye to Under a Falling Sky. And I don't remember how I did it. It's probably really shitty because I'm not really good with all that stuff.
Well, it was actually very similar to what Chris said. So, I mean, Joe Heafy, the Pied Piper of the Connecticut local band scene, struck again. It was just kind of like, you know, just what you said. I mean, I'm a huge fan of this band. I watched these guys for years, you know, so, you know, this is like my dream to be in this band. So it was kind of similar to Chris. So it was like, damn, fucking
So
Joe
then,
Heafy took another one.
So then I'll just go into a little bit of that story real quick. I mean, I won't get into all the rest of the Hate to Have It Back stuff, but on that album, they had already recorded so much. And so as far as Hate to Have to Go Back goes, I only recorded 2 songs. I recorded the new, well, fuck. What the fuck is it? Blood is Beautiful, blah, blah, blah. Roses Are Red and Blood is Beautiful.
Yeah.
I recorded the re-recording of that, and I recorded the Drama Summer, and those are the only 2 songs that I played anything on. And the Drama Summer is the only one I had anything to do with writing.
So to touch off that, earlier when I said me and Joe sat down and divvied up all the songs, we wrote Roses Are Red, and I wrote all the leads for that song when we were together as a group. That was one of the first songs we wrote together. And so when we all divvied up everything, I was like, you guys can keep that song. I want this song. You can have this, like whatever, blah, blah, blah. And then that ended up turning into like one of the biggest songs they had at that point.
That's the song that features you, Chris?
What's up?
Is that the song that features you?
No, I climbed the fence to your backyard. No, was that song?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. So yes, that's where all that came from. That was, we wrote that all together. And then I was like, you guys keep that. I'm going to take this one, which ended up making it onto Romance Roulette later, the song that I kept.
So what everyone needs to realize about me is I don't write music. I wrote very little of any of the bands that I ever played in. Like, I wrote leads and stuff when it became this year's Anthem, but I made a living off of playing everyone else's leads. I played more of Chris Veer's leads than probably any other song I've ever fucking played in my life. But those times were great. And, you know, hanging out at that studio and hanging out with John, who was, you know, kind of a weirdo, but good guy, a little strange. But I do remember re-recording that song on the day that Chris Veer did vocals, and then for some reason there was a big chocolate cake laying around. And I just remember this giant chocolate cake, and Chris, of course, being this big guy, somehow a bet came for Chris to eat this giant chocolate cake. And
Makes sense.
Chris ends up taking off his shirt and
Oh
shoving
my God!
It's like one of those Costco triple chocolate cakes
Oh my God, dude!
in his mouth like a fucking beast, and then smears it all over his stomach like this. And
Holy shit!
I want to say it's on video
Dude,
somewhere.
I forgot about that. Holy shit!
We were doing some recording to do like a DVD or some shit with the Building Something Better release. So it's probably on one of those little tiny tape decks or whatever somewhere.
You gotta find that.
Holy shit, dude! I completely forgot about that. I did do that outside of Horizon. I was just like, and just like fucking. That is to circle back to how we were completely obsessed with Blink-182. That was an ode to Blink-182 because they were so fucking ridiculous and did ridiculous shit like that and made it okay to do ridiculous shit like that. I didn't think anything of it. Oh my God, dude! Holy shit!
This is way before any of us like really started drinking heavily or anything like that. Like, you know.
Oh, we were all straight edge. We were all completely sober.
Yeah, I remember also in that studio, John making me cry because I think I popped a bag or something like that in the fucking other room, and he thought I blew one of the fucking recording speakers, and he came out and he just started fucking wailing on me, and he just started screaming at my face and all this stuff. And I just remember being this little young kid. I think he brought me to tears, and I just started fucking bawling. And it's probably, you know, George made me cry a few times too, just by fucking screaming at me, but. That was the first time, and I just like, oh man, being in band is hard. I fucking hate recording. I hate writing. I hate all this. All I like to do really is perform and play. And all these people are making it serious and fucking ruin it for me.
I'll be right back.
Hey, bye.
But that's a lot of the beginnings of the Hate to Have to Go Back saga.
All right. So Eric's out. And then Chris is not in a band, so he finds his way back in. And Chris picked a good time to walk away from the camera. And Zach and Steve, this is a long tale that we're weaving here. You guys are gonna, you come into play. But Zach, just so I know, who was in Under a Falling Sky when you started coming to the shows and stuff and started getting involved in the scene?
It was like right when Eric joined Hate to Have to Go Back. So it was also around the same time. It was Jay, Dan, Chris, Steve, you, and Dave.
Okay. So
Yeah.
Zach, how did you get into this local scene? And for a long time, you were just a fan pretty much before you started, playing with Hate to Have to Go Back and stuff like that. So what brought you into it, and what was it like going to all these shows just like as a fan?
So I guess how I got into the scene, Steve and I would always listen to Census Fail, Jimmy Eat World, Blink, and then we would go to shows my junior year of high school, which was the year I wasn't at Notre Dame because I got kicked out for smoking marijuana before school. So while Steve and I were going to shows, Chris would be at shows. I'm sure Eric would be at the same shows. So we knew we knew each other through shows.
Yeah, dude, you were at that brand new show that we played.
Yeah.
I remember seeing you peel out of the parking lot in your mom's fucking minivan with Alex Mott or Dave Mott or one of them. And I remember being like, oh, I go to school with that kid, but we weren't friends yet.
Right. We just knew each other. We hung out vicariously at shows. But it wasn't until senior year I actually got let back into Notre Dame. And that's how I started hanging out with Chris, because we have a mutual friend, Mark Proto, who's a big fan, who's also part of this journey with us. And him and I had the same homeroom together senior year. So through becoming good friends with Mark and Chris, that's how I entered the scene, specifically in West Haven, i.e. Hate to Have to Go Back, shows at the FYI Teen Center, etc.
Fuck yeah, dude.
Yeah, man. So I think that was the first time I saw Hate to Have to Go Back with Eric playing. and that's how I was introduced into the scene.